Ευχαριστώ πάρα πολύ. Thank you very much. Καλησπέρα σας. Καλωσορίζουμε στην εκδήλωση εν ώψη της διοργάνωσης από την Ελλάδα της διάσκεψης Our Ocean Greece 2024. Είναι μεγάλη τιμή.
Good afternoon. We would like to welcome you. This is a great honor for us to be hosting a conference in 2 years' time. Without further ado, allow me to give the floor straight away to the mastermind behind this organization, Mr. John Kerry, former Secretary of State. We do have a taped message.
A few thoughts with you as you gather for the announcement that Foreign Minister Denias has addressed and that you are discussing today. It's been my privilege to have worked over these years on a series of conferences called the Our Ocean Conference. And the reason it's so important is that our oceans are critical to life on this planet itself. 51% of the oxygen that we breathe comes from the ocean, a massive amount of protein that billions of people rely on, and literally hundreds of millions of jobs around the world are dependent on the oceans. But the oceans are in crisis today. And the crisis is not just a simple problem of pollution. It's a much more complex problem because the oceans control our climate on a global basis, and the oceans are really critical to the cycle of life and of relationship between the climate crisis and the ocean crisis. What happens, as I think many of you know, is that the pollution of greenhouse gases goes up into the atmosphere, travels around the planet, but it falls in rainfall into the ocean. And that rainfall carries with it massive levels of higher acidity that changes the chemistry of the ocean for the negative. And it changes the food stocks. It has an impact on crustaceans by softening their shells. But most importantly, it is also a crisis of climate because the warming of the earth that comes from greenhouse gases, 90% of it is consumed by the ocean. So the ocean is warming. The chemistry of the ocean is changing more than it has in millions of years. I've had the privilege of being part of a series of conferences, the 7th of which took place in Palau just this year, an ocean conference, where more than 70 nations came together and made pledges, some 400 commitments, totaling in value some $16 billion. And since the beginning of the Our Oceans Conference, there have been now the 7 conferences which have contributed more than $100 billion of value to efforts to protect marine areas, marine protected areas, to be able to change fishing practices, to deal with plastic pollution, and most importantly, to understand the linkage to the climate crisis itself. Next year, Panama will step up and host the 8th conference. And as we've just learned, excitedly, the year after that, the 9th conference will be hosted by Greece. And I can't think of a country more appropriate, perhaps than with Panama, which is also a major shipping nation involved in the shipping of the world. But Greece obviously has a history that goes far back as history itself. As we all know, one of the great figures of Greek history, Achilles, in the Iliad once said and is quoted as saying that the ocean is the source of all. If we think about it that way, we understand the importance of dealing with these ocean challenges. And dealing with them literally protects life on the planet itself. It protects and makes the planet cleaner, safer, healthier. And as a result, we benefit all of us around the world. We're excited about Greece's leadership in the 9th conference because Greece is such an amazing shipping leader on a global basis. We've already seen some shipping companies beginning to make announcements about building and buying completely carbon-free vessels and beginning to change shipping corridors from the port through the oceans to the port of destination so that all the practices within those shipping corridors are green. So I wanted just to congratulate you. I'm delighted at Foreign Minister Dendias's invitation to join you for a few moments. We're really excited about Greece stepping up to have the 9th Our Ocean Conference and to begin now the effort to build towards the actions that are so critical to all of us on this planet. One of the other things that we need to face up to, frankly, are not just the shipping practices, but fishing practices. We have far too much money chasing too few fish around the world. We have illegal fishing vessels on the ocean, on the high seas, supported by their nations, which literally are strip mining the ocean today. And that will leave us with fishing stocks that are even further diminished. Just as an example, the blue tuna now is down to about 5% of its normal stock level, and it is threatened with extinction. So, that said, the promise of accomplishing what we need to accomplish lies in these Our Ocean conferences, which are not just gatherings to chit-chat, they are action-oriented assemblies. And the actions, as I mentioned, have summoned billions of dollars to the table, 100,000 plus commitments now, and we're confident that as we move into the 9th iteration of the conference, Greece is going to step up and provide the leadership that is necessary. Thank you for the privilege of sharing just a couple of thoughts with you. I look forward to working with you over the next couple of years in the lead up to that important conference. Thank you, Foreign Minister, for yours and the Prime Minister's leadership. Greece is doing what it usually does, which is stepping up and offering leadership that will make a difference to the entire planet. Thank you.
A few weeks after the UN Convention on the Seas in Lisbon, it's an honor and a pleasure for us to have a message from the Special Envoy of UN Secretary General, Mr. Peter Thompson.
Ladies and gentlemen, all courtesies observed, and thank you for the opportunity of addressing you today. I'd like to add my voice of congratulations to Greece regarding the hosting of the Our Ocean Conference in Greece in 2024. I'm advised that the conference will be organized by Greece in coordination with the United States of America, and that it will bring together both state and non-state actors, including the private sector and academia. I have no doubt, as evidenced by past iterations of the Our Ocean Conference, that the 2024 conference in Greece will result in firm commitments aiding the ocean's health. There is so much to do to halt the decline in the ocean's health, and to stay true to the implementation of the UN's Sustainable Development Goal 14 of conserving and sustainably using the ocean's resources. From the enhancement of maritime security to the ending of illegal fishing, from the enhancement of measures to stop source-to-sea pollution by plastics and chemicals to the ending of harmful fisheries subsidies, and from the enhancement of ocean science to the development of the sustainable blue economy. The 2024 Our Ocean Conference will be following in the footsteps of its predecessors in support of SDG 14. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as Special Presidential Envoy for Climate John Kerry has often said, a climate meeting is an ocean meeting, and vice versa. Indeed, this is as it should be on our blue planet. A melting ice sheet in Greenland is directly connected to rising sea levels threatening atoll dwellers in the South Pacific. It was therefore gratifying to attend the first Ocean Climate Change Dialogue in Bonn in June, the follow-up of which will happen in Sharm el-Sheikh at UNFCCC's COP27. The focus of this process lies in the solutions that sustainable use of the ocean's resources can bring to mitigating the climate crisis, and on how greater ambition in climate change mitigation can stop the decline in the ocean's health. No healthy planet without a healthy ocean, and the ocean's health is currently measurably in decline. But we can stop that decline if we maintain the spirit of multilateralism experienced in the Ocean Action Agenda so far in 2022, by grasping the nettle of consensus at the great confluence of environmental conferences that are occurring this year. Member states are doing the right thing for their own countries and the well-being of all. They did so in Nairobi at the UN Environment Assembly at the beginning of the year with agreement to negotiate an internationally binding treaty to combat plastic pollution. They did so in Geneva with the WTO Ministerial Council's agreement to ban harmful fisheries subsidies. And they did so in Lisbon at the second UN Ocean Conference with the launching of a great fleet of solutions in support of SDG 14's targets. Now they must conclude negotiations in New York on an ambitiously operable high seas treaty so that governance of the great global commons of the ocean is instituted for the good of all. And at Sharm el-Sheikh in November, we expect to see evidence of the necessary funds produced, particularly for developing countries, to finance their adaptation plans. And finally in Montreal, come December, at CBD COP15, let us equip the world with targets ambitious enough to halt the biodiversity loss that is haunting the health of land, sea, and ultimately ourselves. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, I take this opportunity to applaud Greece for the environmental governance measures it is taking to tackle climate change by designing a national strategy for the effective protection of terrestrial and marine ecosystems. I have noted with admiration your focus on correcting the loss of biodiversity, of ending overfishing and marine pollution, increasing marine protected areas to 30%, including many no-take zones, reduction of marine pollution with emphasis on plastics, reduction of single-use plastic, and the planting of 20 million trees by 2030. This is all very good news for your region and for the planet as a whole. So more power to you in these endeavors. I close my remarks at the UN Ocean Conference in Lisbon the way I will do today. I said in Lisbon that we're all rolling down a freeway with a great big green motorway sign up ahead saying 3 degrees. We know that destination is a place of fire and famine and plague and war. The kids in the back seat are screaming. They don't want to go there. And still, we're reluctant to get off the comforts of this freeway. But we can see that there's a turnoff coming up with a sign above it saying it goes to a place called 1.5 degrees. There's a warning that it's a narrow road, it's a rocky one with plenty of hills to climb. But we know that it's a place where our children and theirs can live in dignity. As a loving grandfather, I speak for my 4 granddaughters when I say we all have to change our ways. We must take that turnoff to 1.5 degrees. We must make the necessary investments, transformations, and sacrifices. And we all have to be prepared, henceforth, to place intergenerational justice above our short-term comforts. I thank you for your attention.
Η πρώτη διάσκεψη
The first conference, or the first ocean conference, was organized in Europe in 2017. It was co-organized by Malta and the European Union. It's an honor for us today to have another message from Commissioner Virginis Sinkevičius.
Thank you for the opportunity to address you today, and a big thank you to Greece for organizing this launch event. This will be the second time that the Our Ocean Conference takes place in the European Union. We hosted the event in 2017, and hosting it again shows our commitment to the goals of the conference and to continuing its success. For 7 years, the Our Ocean Conference has been instrumental in keeping the spotlight on the ocean and the many challenges it faces. At the same time, it has encouraged and made visible the many efforts for the conservation and sustainable use of our ocean, not only from governments and regulators, but also the private sector and philanthropic associations. Our ocean is in dire need of strong and concrete action. At the last edition of the conference in Palau, the EU made 44 commitments worth €1 billion. They cover a wide range of issues, from marine protected areas to confronting the ocean climate crisis. This is the most ambitious commitment the EU has ever made at the Our Ocean Conference. It's important to note that these commitments complement and add to the collective ocean commitments the international community has been working on multilaterally, such as the negotiations for an agreement on biodiversity beyond national jurisdiction, or the Convention on Biological Diversity, or the recent World Trade Organization agreement on a ban on harmful fisheries subsidies. It's efforts like these that are making 2022 the super year of the ocean. Reaching a meaningful agreement on banning harmful fishery subsidies at the 12th WTO Ministerial Conference was a major breakthrough for ocean protection. I hope we can replicate this success at the upcoming BB&J Intergovernmental Conference next month, and then again at the meeting of the CBD COP15 in December. These challenges are complex, and no one can tackle them alone. We need a collective global approach. This is what we stressed when we renewed our commitment to safe, secure, clean, healthy, and sustainably managed oceans earlier this year. In our update of the EU's international ocean governance agenda, we have a lot of work ahead of us in terms of organizing the conference and continuing our efforts to protect the ocean. I wish you a productive meeting, and I look forward to the 2024 edition of our Ocean Conference in Greece. Thank you for your attention.
Και εν ώψη της διοργάνωσης
And in view of hosting the conference in 2024, allow me now to give the floor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Hellenic Republic, Mr. Dandias. Over to you. Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Gabon, Excellencies, Ambassadors, representatives of the diplomatic corps, dear colleagues of mine, dear friends, dear ministers, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you at tonight's event. Most certainly, first and foremost, I would like to welcome my counterpart from Gabon, a friendly country. This is the first visit by a Minister of Foreign Affairs from Gabon in Greece. And therefore, we are very pleased and happy to have you with us. And indeed, this is a minister that comes from a country which I would like to say that its contribution in terms of environmental protection, of protecting the forest, protecting biodiversity, is exceptional. Gabon is a country with a huge coastline and the Atlantic Ocean, and this is a country which has lots and lots of forests, possibly the most forests the world over. It certainly has the biggest population of forest elephants the world over, and so much more. Let's get back to the subject matter at hand, and let me say that it's a great honor for us to be hosting in 2024 OOC, our Ocean Conference. This is an initiative that started back in the year 2014 by the then State Secretary and now U.S. Special Envoy for Climate, Mr. John Kerry, kicked off this very initiative. You heard John Kerry a while ago elaborate on the philosophy behind this platform. This is an effort aimed at protecting the very heart of our ecosystem, an ecosystem which is keeping us alive, and that is the seas, the oceans. In his own message, John Kerry mentioned, and I quote, what Achilles said in the Iliad. If you recall, he was walking by the sea after the death of his friend Patroclus. Achilles said, and I quote, the ocean is the source of all. And this is true indeed. Oceanus in Greek mythology was a titan. He was the son of Uranus and Gaia, the earth. On certain occasions, he was also called the father of all gods, and therefore he was the father of everything and everyone, of all. Regardless of Greek antiquity or mythology, one thing is certain beyond the shadow of a doubt, that is that the seas and the oceans are very important for the human species. The very fact alone that the word oceanus or ocean is of Greek origin is certainly important for us and our own obligation as a country. We, therefore, Greece, need to pitch in. We have to contribute in this effort. The water element is interwoven with the path of Greece and its itinerary and its course over centuries and millennia. Greece has a coastline which is almost 21,000 kilometers, and it's slightly smaller than the total coastline of Africa, my dear colleague. And since the start of time, we have always been synonymous with or interconnected with the water element. Today, Greece, we, a small country at the edge of Europe, has the biggest fleet the world over. Greek vessels flying the Greek flag the world over are the most. So we are also trying very, very hard to make sure that we highlight the importance of protecting the seas. After all, Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis is involved and deals with many issues that touch on environmental protection, the protection of the oceans, and combating climate change. And this is proof of what I just said, proof of the fact that this new democracy government is dealing with the challenge at hand. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in close collaboration with all other ministries and authorities, both in Greece and abroad, is voicing ideas and taking initiatives. First, aimed at protecting, or rather ensuring there's maritime security and freedom of shipping. We are critical and contributed to combating piracy. Our dear guest is very well aware of the challenges that piracy poses in the Gulf of Guinea, and Greece is also contributing, protecting the marine environment, dealing with climate change. The rise of the seas waters is certainly directly threatening not just the island clusters in the Indian Ocean, the Pacific Ocean. It's also posing direct threats to various countries, littoral, coastal countries from Bangladesh through Greece all the way to the Netherlands and Canada. I had an opportunity to talk about all these matters with the head of the General Assembly of the UN last September, and this is the person who just so happens to be the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Maldives. And more recently, I also had the opportunity to discuss these subjects with my peers from Senegal, Cabo Verde, and certainly Gabon. We in Greece, let me add that, also perceive Greece as a source of clean energy, source of energy which is combined with environmental protection. On my way back from the UK, actually I came back yesterday, on my way back from London, I noticed there are wind farms in the English Channel. Apparently they are not harming the environment, but we have to make sure that there is a binding framework in place. And I have to say that a big part of this binding framework is already there. It has been there for certain decades. I am now referring to UNCLOS, UNCLOS. This is a treaty, a UN treaty for the law of the sea. Gabon and Greece have endorsed it. They've signed off to it. And of course, the same goes for the European Union. UNCLOS is putting in place the necessary provisions in order for coastal states to delineate the areas where they have rights, and they certainly, this is most important, they decide and determine the places and locations where we have special obligations. And of course, UNCLOS is very important in terms of protecting the seas and the marine environment, the open seas. This is a common good for all of us, the states of the world. We as Greece state in a straightforward manner that all states need to respect the binding character of this convention. If they haven't signed it, it's still a customary law that binds all the states of the globe. It's also a pleasure, and I've worked with the European Commissioner, to have had, in the context of our initiative, to have had him share with us a message. And he stated that he's very happy to have the Ocean Conference, the OOC 2024, organized by Greece. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very important for us to make sure that we all contribute. In order to achieve our goals, we have to pitch in, all of us, each and every one of us, ladies and gentlemen. So governments, the private sector, and non-government organizations have to contribute for their part. And I would like to greet in particular and hail the presence of NGOs which are active in environmental protection. They're all here today. As Mr. Kerry said, and he was to the point, now it's high time that we acted together in order for us to save what is the locomotive and the most important force for our planet, that is our seas and the oceans. For us, Greeks, after all, this is synonymous with our way of life and has been for centuries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. Please allow me now to give the floor to the Foreign Minister of Gabon. It is a great joy and honor for us to have you with us. You may have the floor, sir. Thank you.
Comme vous le savez, bonsoir à tous, bonjour à tous. Comme vous le savez, le Gabon vient d'être admis au Commonwealth et nous sommes aussi membres de la francophonie comme la Grèce, mais il m'a été demandé de faire mon allocution en anglais. Donc je vais essayer de faire cet effort. J'aurais bien voulu le faire en grec, parce qu'à l'école primaire, on nous donnait le choix d'apprendre le grec et le latin, mais j'ai eu tellement peur de parler le grec, c'était tellement difficile que j'avais opté pour autre chose. Donc je demande votre indulgence, donc je vais lire mon allocution en anglais, si ça ne vous dérange pas. Excellencies, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, Monsieur le ministre Nikolaos Dendas, mon frère et ami, Ladies and Gentlemen, to be here in Athens, the cradle of Western civilization, democracy, and among friends, it's a unique and distinct honor, but also a privilege. Today, our planet is faced by three man-made issues: environmental crisis, climate change, biodiversity extension crisis, and pollution. All of us here today will be judged by future generations by strength of our collaborative efforts and reaction to these interrelated crises. My country, Gabon, is located on the equator on the west coast of Africa. Our land area is about twice the size of Greece, and our EEZ is just under half that size. 85% of our land is covered by tropical rainforest, making up about 12% of the Congo basin. Deforestation rates have remained low since 1972, Stockholm Conference, where the late president of Gabon, Omar Bongo Ndimba, made a strong commitment to sustainable development and environmental protection. Today, under the leadership of His Excellency President Ali Bongo Ndimba, Gabon is the most net positive country on earth in terms of carbon emissions, absorbing over 140 million tons annually, almost double Greece's annual emissions. Our second NDC, submitted recently, makes an unconditional commitment to remain carbon neutral beyond 2050. Subject to a post-Glasgow carbon market for our own net carbon sequestration, we will endeavor to continue to remove over 140 million tons of CO2 net from the atmosphere every year. Over more than 2 decades, successive Gabonese governments have worked hard to develop an understanding among citizens that preserving our remarkable natural resources is everyone's business and central to the maintenance of our collective peace and the generation of prosperity. Co-opting our citizens in the protection of nations, forests, and oceans has been one of our greatest challenges. It may yet be our greatest achievement and Gabon's most important contribution to humanity. To understand why this is, you need to understand that Gabon has 85% of its land covered in rainforest, an area about the size of the UK. So while the rest of the planet is focusing on getting to carbon neutrality by 2050, Gabon has always been carbon neutral. We absorb more than we emit. As I said earlier, our forests absorb a total of 140 million tons of CO2 every year, the equivalent of removing 30 million cars from the road globally. Our nation plays an outsized role in addressing global warming. When you understand this, and you understand too, that 50% of our population is under the age of 20. Under the age of 20. That's probably why I look like a fossil or a dinosaur. Then you will understand why we have prioritized a conservation-led approach to economic development, on one that simultaneously serves the needs of Gabonese people and global humanity. We have to make conservation work for the Gabonese people, generating jobs and sustainable livelihoods. Without jobs and incomes, no approach to conservation can be sustainable. We consider this contribution to the fight against climate change to be a moral imperative. The forests of the Congo Basin stock about 8 years of global carbon emission in their trees, liners, and soils. Put simply, there is no hope of keeping 1.5 or 2 degrees alive without the Congo Basin forests standing. But our forests are not simply a carbon bank. They provide key environmental services to the African continent and the global community. They send moisture along atmospheric rivers, generating rainfalls into the Sahel and the Ethiopian highlands, filling the Blue Nile and sending water to sustain agriculture in Egypt. The Congo Basin is the heart of Africa and the lung of the planet. If our forests sicken and die, quite literally, hundreds of millions of climate refugees will be left homeless all across the Sahel, in the Horn of Africa, and along the southern Mediterranean. The African continent and much of Southern Europe will be destabilized in this scenario, which compels us to all work together to fight climate change. In our ocean, the damage done by climate change, overfishing, and pollution is all the more sinister because it is hidden under the surface. Increases in temperature and acidity, as well as sea level rise, have strengthened storm damages and coastal floods in recent years, while fish pirates rove the high seas, zeroing in our country, in countries like Gabon, where 27% of our EEZ is covered in protected areas and fisheries management plan cover the rest. Our work preserving our forest has occupied us for over 20 years. We are now taking the same approach to protecting our oceans and developing our fisheries. The most fished fish in Gabon is the tuna, 2 different species of tuna. And over the past 30 years or more, they have been caught and exported without ever touching Gabonese soil, without ever creating a job in Gabon, and only contributing very small amount to the Gabonese economy. They have been processed and turned into high-value products of the Gabonese shores and away from the Gulf of Guinea. We now know that we have about 60,000 tons of tuna that we could harvest every year, and we could easily service to tune up 2 service plants with 6,000 jobs and value added. And so we've been looking to do this recently. Fishery stocks in the Gulf of Guinea have suffered terribly in the past 20, 30 years. Our own fish stock were plummeting until the point where the president launched his Gabon Blue program in 2013. There's still a lot of work to do to rebuild our fish stocks and make our fisheries sustainable, but it is a commitment we have made and we will honor. Over 4 years ago, we created 20 marine protected areas, partly to preserve marine biodiversity, but also to promote production by protecting breeding grounds and to increase our sustainable harvest through a mix of careful fisheries management and conservation of ecosystems. We understand that fisheries are essential to job and income creators, and we understand also they are critical for food security too. Again, because of climate change, food security is going to become even more critical over the next 30, 40 years across the African continent and globally. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our Ocean Conference of 2024 here in Greece will be a real opportunity for us all to examine ways to address the impact of climate change, overfishing, and marine pollution. There is a saying in Gabon that goes, "On est ensemble." We are together. I call on you all to support us and to renew your own efforts to renew marine ecosystems and fish stocks, and to avoid the horror statistic we hear more and more speeches that there will be soon more plastic in the ocean than fish. I thank you for your kind attention.
Ευχαριστούμε πάρα πολύ.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to have you with us, and let me now give the floor to Yorgos Amiras, who is the Deputy Minister for the Environment and Energy.
Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Thank you very much. Your Excellency, dear guest, Mr. Minister of Foreign Affairs of Gabon, dear colleagues, dear ministers, dear representatives of so many countries that are gracing us with your presence, dear friends from NGOs, dear citizens. About half a century ago, renowned oceanographer, scientist, and researcher Jacques-Yves Cousteau had said, and I quote, "For most of history, man has had defied nature to survive. In this century, he is beginning to realize that in order to survive, he must protect it." That's what Jacques-Yves Cousteau said about half a century ago. That was a pioneering statement on behalf of a scientist back then. Today, that is commonplace. And what helped was actually the fact that, or rather many parameters helped make this commonplace. I'd say that globalization really helped, because as we speak, we can all have access to information. We can broadcast information, we can disseminate information, we can interact with various people coming from different cultural backgrounds even, and we have come to a common conclusion, and we all agree that if we fail to pay attention to our seas, to our oceans, that is a natural environment, the first who will be impacted on negatively will be humans. Let's take stock of simple data and let's deal with facts and figures. Within a year, last year, people dumped in the seas about 17 million tons of plastics. I guess you all know about this landfill that's there. There's a floating garbage patch in the Pacific. It's a surface area. It has a surface area of over 1 million square kilometers. Greece has a surface area of 131,940 square kilometers. So we have 9 times Greece. That's the Pacific trash vortex. This is a shock. Such data, such facts and figures can only make us assume action, deal with the situation at hand. The seas and the oceans are calling out, and they are screaming not for themselves but for the benefit of us people. It's an honor for us to have in 2024 this international conference, the OOC, in collaboration and consultation with the United States of America. This is a shared initiative bringing together Greece and the US. And certainly this initiative is going to point in the right direction. That is a path in the seas and the oceans in order for us to return to reasoning. Greece, as we speak, is headed in the right direction because we fully understand that climate crisis can only be dealt with just as long as we, in the meantime, protect and shield biodiversity. And therefore, Greece has made steps in that direction. Some of these steps are actually innovative, and I know that I'm going fast, and I will be very brief nonetheless. Greece, for instance, has proceeded with a reform, an environmental reform, the name of which is 1,000 pristine beaches. What does that mean? We have chosen, to begin with, 1,000 beaches which have not been changed or impacted by anthropogenic activities, and we are going to make sure that they are protected at the highest level so that we will bequeath them to generations to come and make sure that they remain pristine as we found them. There will be a higher number, not just 1,000, which we were beginning with, and these will be coupled with the fact that we're making good on what Kyriakos Mitsotakis publicly announced last year in September. There was an IUCN World Conservation Congress that the PM attended, and he said back then that we're going to protect 30% of the Greek seas, and actually 1/3 thereof will be fully protected, so not even passing by will be allowed, and no fishing will be allowed in these areas. Moreover, in Lisbon at the recent UN conference on the oceans, we announced that we will commit ourselves voluntarily to collecting fishing gear waste, which is a huge issue for many nations because such gear has lots of plastic, and we aim at, over the next 2 or 3 years, starting to recycle them by at least 40%. Moreover, Greece is shaping up its islands. It's changing them. We have a green transition. We have Halki, Tilos, Astipale, and so many other Greek islands that are being changed. And we have also implemented a number of action plans to protect Caretta, amongst others, or the Tusius truncatus, the common bottlenose dolphin, and also harbor porpoise, plus monachos, the Mediterranean seal. We are responsible because we are hosting 50% thereof. 50% of the population the world over, that is. So, as I said before, the sea is screaming out to us. We are obligated, and we are in a position to lend an ear to what the seas have to say because our oceans are trying to save us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. I will now give the floor to the Deputy Minister of Shipping and Insular Policy, Mr. Katsafados. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Gabon, dear peers and colleagues, dear ambassadors, dear representatives of NGOs, ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure for us to be here today in view of this very important initiative that Greece is taking. It will be hosting, in collaboration and consultation with the US, our Ocean Conference in 2024. My ministry, as the administrative entity that is managing the biggest fleet the world over, and since it's a ministry in charge of marine supervision, it's involved directly and immediately in everything that is pertinent to relevant issues, including climate change, sea protection, and overfishing. Starting with the most pressing issue in our times, climate change. The climate crisis is urging us all. It's making it imperative for us all to overhaul our way of life and to change our customs in terms of our social life and economic activities. Such changes often call for tough decision-making and fast implementation. And so international shipping, which is moving over 90% of international trade and commerce, has a critical role to play, especially for Greece. Shipping is also ensuring our cohesion, be it social and territorial. The Greek government is fully sharing and endorsing the need to achieve carbon neutrality and environmental neutrality in terms of shipping activities by the year 2050. It's after all our duty and obligation in order for us to bequeath with a sustainable future, a better future for generations to come. And that's why we are working with the IMO and the European Union together, so that shipping will continue unimpededly to provide for and support the global and the national economy, while at the same time realistically dealing with deliquidization, decarbonization for that matter. At the same point, we are also trying to take advantage of our biggest ports while upgrading them, and we are improving the ports in every single island in Greece. Ladies and gentlemen, for the Greek government, ports and havens are levers for growth that benefit local communities, and they have a multiplying effect that helps employment and the local economies. And we have a special secretariat, the so-called General Secretariat for the Aegean, which is an integral part of our ministry. The General Secretariat is, amongst others, working in the field, and it's implementing policies aimed at sustainable growth and development for the islands, and also making sure that there is social prosperity and economic prosperity by enforcing diversified strategies for sustainable growth for each and every island in a customized manner. Let me in particular refer to diversification and scope it offers as the blue economy you see. And let me on that issue refer to the LNG floating terminal in Alexandroupolis, which combined with the upgrade of the Revithousa terminal is going to upgrade energy security and ensure the autonomy of our country and the whole of Southeastern Europe from an energy point of view. Of the past 20 years, challenges as far as the marine environment is concerned have not stopped. There's more than climate change. Over the past 20 years, international shipping has made leaps and bounds in terms of protecting marine environments. And you see, we have been dealing with various and managing challenges, such as, for instance, gaseous emissions, vessels, including sulfur or nitrogen oxide, amongst others, and marine waste and ballast. And challenges certainly include overfishing. It's an issue that concerns us on a national and also on a global level. The Hellenic Coast Guard is certainly supervising the enforcement of the relevant fishing legislation in its area of responsibility. Moreover, the ministry has 24/7 a center for following up on fishing activities. It's working round the clock. Ladies and gentlemen, the problems that concern the seas are multi-layered, multivariate, and they call for a concerted effort to be made by all of us. Vessels, the coastal areas, littoral areas, and the islands are all aspects of a versatile image, since the sea is the area where many economic fields and sectors are working. And so we have to make sure that we work together. At the same point in time, we shouldn't overlook the fact that many pollution sources are exogenous. They come from the coast, from the land. And that's why modern concepts such as the blue economy, which embraces all the fields and sectors of economic activity that are directly or indirectly pertinent to the seas, are the future in terms of ocean management. And so it's important to make sure that we have and ensure the active participation and involvement of public and private entities. Platforms and initiatives such as the Our Ocean Conference provide opportunities to people representing governments, the management, the administration, various organizations, and also entities the world over to have profound discussions about the real problems of our oceans, to agree in making steps and also exchanging experiences and views. We look forward to the valuable conclusions of and the results of such a partnership. And so we would like to welcome the upcoming organization of OOC 2024, and rest assured that we will be there supporting you all the way. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. And I now give the floor to the Deputy Minister for Rural Development and Food, Mr. Simeon Kedikoglou. You have the floor, Minister. Honorable guest, Foreign Minister of Gabon, it is a great joy to have you with us today. Dear friends from the diplomatic corps, the NGOs, dear colleagues, Please allow me to speak off the cuff. A number was mentioned, 1.5 degrees Celsius. It sounds like a little. It doesn't sound like a lot. But let me say what's already happened in the Greek seas. This increase of temperature by 1.5 degrees Celsius did away with the mussels. The mussels have disappeared from all the mussel cultures. A huge percentage of production died. Why? Because there was a rise in the temperature by 1.5 degrees. And this wasn't the worst consequence. This 1.5 degrees Celsius allowed the introduction of invasive species, alien species from the Indian Ocean that passed through the Suez Canal. And this always used to happen. It always was the case, but because the Mediterranean had colder water, when these alien species tried to cross the Suez Canal, they thought that the Mediterranean was inhospitable and they turned back. But this 1.5 degree Celsius rise allows them to remain in the Mediterranean, where they have no natural enemies, and they propagate without control. We're talking about various fish like Lagocephalus scleratus, the pufferfish, and they do away with the local fish, the indigenous species. And this is very important because we see that it's not enough for an individual country to take action. What is needed is collective effort that will take a long time, many years, in order to reverse the situation. We mustn't allow things to get worse, to deteriorate. And we have started a huge effort. This has to do with one of the main principles of the common fisheries policy. We try to be proactive. We want to maintain the aquatic living resources, protect marine ecosystems, and promote their sustainable exploitation. This is why certain appropriate management measures have been considered, particularly following scientific research. Now, both in the Black Sea and in the Mediterranean, and this is something that we see in the announcements by the European Commission, it is mentioned that a lot of efforts must be made, a lot of conservation efforts, because certain fishing stocks are being overfished. And we see that fish mortality remains at high levels, whereas the biomass index from 2012 seems to have a small increase in the Mediterranean, but also in the Black Sea. It is also pointed out that the above-mentioned conclusions do not highlight the effort that is being made in a closed sea, such as the Mediterranean, where we don't have all the information on our fingertips. And the more information we acquire about the situation, the better the indices. And also, we must take into account the fishing activity of third country vessels, which do not apply the strict measures that we apply in the EU. The Ministry of Rural Development and Food implements via the General Directorate of Fisheries the competencies pertaining to management, fisheries, and exploitation of the ichthyotrophic waters, in which we include the matters pertaining to protection of fishing resources and balance in the natural ecosystem. In this framework, we have already established a large number of regulatory measures regarding the fishing activity, taking into account the rational management of fishing stocks, but also protection of the marine environment, taking into account, of course, the significant socio-economic impacts on the sector. At the same time, we see that there has been a ban at a local level, but also in relation to other matters when it comes to fishing activity from professional fishing vessels, and we keep looking at new proposals according to what is mentioned in the EU strategy for biodiversity for 2030, Brussels 25-2020, for the good of the environment and the economy, and in order to support the recovery effort made by the EU after the COVID crisis, we must protect nature even more. So according to the above, 30% of the sea must be protected in the EU, meaning being 19% more for the marine areas in connection to what is the case today at the EU level. Right now, less than 1% of marine areas are strictly protected in the EU. In this light, at least 1/3 of protected areas must be strictly protected. This is a very important effort, but we must not ignore the fact that these targets are calculated at the EU level as a whole. And we must also take into account that certain countries, including Greece, have already taken strict protection measures and have carried out bans which go beyond the percentage that they should have. So Greece has already achieved the European and global target in relation to expanding protected areas. We're talking about 17% of land areas and 10% of marine areas in the planet. What is more, and this has not yet been officially designated, measures have been taken to protect the Aegean Sea, and there is a large area of areas where fishery is restricted, and in this case we see that the use of active or passive gear is not allowed in these areas. Of course, this is not the case for third country fishing vessels. According to a statement made by the Greek Prime Minister in Athens in 2021, the need was mentioned to restore the fishing stocks to sustainable levels, strictly implementing the common fisheries policy, emphasizing reducing bycatch, protecting protected species more, sustainable fisheries, increasing the selectivity of fishing methods, and also controlling the fishing activities even more. The action plan for an exemplary Mediterranean by 2030, which was proposed by France and in which Greece is also a part of, focuses on the four main challenges to protect the marine environment of the Mediterranean: biodiversity loss, unsustainable fishing, marine pollution, particularly from plastic, and unsustainable maritime transport. On the basis of all the above, our country has undertaken commitments for the Greek seas up until 2030. So Athens' Declaration on Climate Change and the Environment in the Mediterranean was adopted on the 17th of September 2021 by the UMED9 leaders, where they underscore their common and shared belief that the urgent and ambitious global action at a national, regional, and local level, with the participation of all stakeholders, particularly civil society and the private sector, is more necessary than ever in order to combat the escalating climate and environmental crisis. Among other things, they said that plans should be drafted at the level of the EU and also apply risk management principles on the basis of scientific knowledge in relation to the ecosystem in order to avert any climate threats. Furthermore, Greece has as a priority the support of small-scale coastal fishing, which is a vital pillar of the economy and society, but also the tradition of our islands and coastal areas, particularly under the special conditions that have been imposed because of the COVID-19 pandemic, which makes it necessary to immediately take measures to mitigate the consequences. At the same time, there is a need to take into account other anthropogenic activities, not only fisheries that contribute to the degradation of the marine environment and to the reduction of fish stocks and marine biodiversity. The importance of regional cooperation to implement the conservation measures, as this is enhanced and encouraged by the common fisheries policy, not only among member states of the EU through the implementation of multi-annual management plans, but also between the EU and third countries through the cooperation in the regional fisheries management organizations, RFMOs, particularly in areas like the Mediterranean, is a given. At the same time, there is a need to stop unfair competition between EU member state fishers who are forced to apply stricter rules and third country, if you like, fishers. For example, in the Dodecanese, we have very strict measures, and the fishermen from the Dodecanese come and say to us, look, you say we need to protect fishing stocks, but our neighbors come from the neighboring country, and they do not uphold the restrictions that you say are necessary. So the end result is not the one that we want to have. But this is something that goes beyond the Ministry of Fisheries. It's got to do with the Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. But all I'm trying to say is that we need to make a concerted effort in order to save the Mediterranean Sea. And just two thoughts off the cuff again. We have to find new solutions. For example, we have to protect the stocks, fishing stocks, but we must also support the income of fishermen. That's a difficult equation. It's difficult to strike a balance. In Greece, with the MOU that we signed with the Ministry of Tourism, we're trying to promote fishing tourism. And it's like being able to hit two birds with one stone, meaning we protect fish stocks, but we also offer an alternative source of income to our fishermen. And we also have another type of tourism, because Greece is a unique destination for fishing tourism. Let me also talk about the example of Amorgorama. Amorgorama is something very few people know. It's an effort that was undertaken by the fishermen of Amorgos. They stopped fishing activity when we know that fish spawn, meaning from April to May. And in that period, they collect all the litter from shallow waters, and they pick up trash from the beaches. So in 1 month, on a small island, they were able to collect 12.5 tons of plastic. And this is also very important, and it's something we intend to do when consulting with our partners for the new programming period. I'm talking about the fisheries program, to enhance such actions, to promote such actions, because right now under the PA, this is not provided for yet. So what we want is to provide support to such actions like cleaning up beaches, beach cleanups, but also to change the engines of fishing boats. And this is not allowed yet, so we know that they have old engines on these small fishing vessels. They have a huge carbon footprint, which is very big compared to their horsepower. But of course, this has to be done in consultation with our EU partners. We need to work together. We need to pull up our sleeves and work together. Thank you very much.
Ευχαριστούμε κύριε Υπουργέ.
Thank you very much, Minister. Ministers.
Εκπρόσωποι των μη κυβερνητικών οργανώσεων.
Representatives of the NGOs, ladies and gentlemen, this is a wrap, and thank you very much for attending this event. We would like to invite you outside. We're going to have a small cocktail reception. See you outside. Thank you.